Hello everyone, my name is Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Fazbear Frights number 2, Fetch. I already said my intro for this video, but I'm not going to add it in because I'm too lazy. Today we are reading up to page 85 because this is the final episode for Fetch. And I'm genuinely intrigued by Fetch's livelihood. So, this is going to be both a long video and a sad one. It's the 60 to 85. So, get to page 60. We're on... Whoa! Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry to myself. I couldn't see my screen. I mean, my book. Whatever. That's a horrible boomer joke. Yeah, we're on the whoa part. So, it's 60 to 80... 61 to 85. That's 25. Wait, is it? Yeah, it's 25. So around page... What? Page 13 of this, I'll stop and grab a drink. Right, isn't it? Yeah, we're gonna learn about plants. Plants! Yeah, I'm talking clowns. That's a JonTron joke for any of you that know JonTron. Whoa! Greg nodded so hard he felt like a bobblehead doll. Yeah, I know. Oh, whoa. Yeah, I know. Greg nodded like a bobblehead. He grinned. Most people didn't believe Baxter when he published his results, but he kept experimenting, not only with plants, but with human cells, and he proved that cells can sense thoughts. They have a consciousness. Kimberly locked her shiny hair with an index finger. So, if cells have a consciousness, then why is it such a leap to think our brains can influence a machine? Exactly! We should include that in our paper, Kimberly said. It's good stuff. Yeah, I thought it was cool that I decided to do my own experiments. My uncle got me a polygraph machine, and I started trying things with my plants. It actually works. They know what I'm thinking. Oh, at least the simple stuff. Wow. Yeah, I've been trying other things. Wow. Yeah, I've been trying other things too. Greg hesitated. Should he tell her? Like what? Like what? She asked. Rick chewed on his lip. Oh, I'm not. He scooted close to her and lowered his voice. Do you remember what Mr. Jacoby said about the 0-point field and that it means all matter in the universe are interconnected by subaquatic waves that connect one part of the universe to every other part? Yeah, sure. Well, I read about the field over the summer, and when I read it, I got really excited. I read that researchers are saying the field can explain lots of stuff no one could explain before, stuff like chi and telepathy, whatever, and other physics abilities. I have a cousin who's psychic. Wow, I'm horrible at reading, Kimberly said. She always knows when there's going to be a test for her at her school. Kimberly laughed. I've been trying to get her to teach me how to do that. Greg grinned. Then you'll get it. Get what? Well, I have good stuff in my life, but there's so much I hate, like my dad and just stuff. So I figured I can learn to use field, communicate with it. Tell it what I want to get it to tell me what to do. So I've been practicing on my plants, seeing if they respond to my intention. When I started concentrating on things, I wanted to see if I got any ideas. Like guidance? Guidance? Yeah. Kimberly slowly nodded. I get what you're trying to do. She wrinkled up her perfect nose. The problem is, well, she shrugged. I wonder if trying to get the field to work is like a monkey trying to fly an airplane. It's gonna crash and burn before he can figure it out. Greg tried not to let her see that her words felt like a kick in the gut. She obviously did see, though. Not that you're a monkey, I mean. I mean, the quantum stuff is hard. I like it too. I'm trying to read about it, and I don't get it. Not really. Hey, Trent burst into the room. You two smash it face in here or what? Kimberly blushed deep red. Shut up, Trent, Greg said. Shut yourself up. Your time's up. Our turn. Trent gestured toward his project partner, another school athlete, Rory. Greg still couldn't believe that they were both in advanced scientific theory. We're done. Kimberly scrambled to her feet. She and Greg left the room. Let's get together over the weekend and talk more about the paper, she suggested. Sure. After Greg got home from school, he texted Haiti and Serial asking them to come over. While he waited, he looked at the latest text from Fetch. Too easy. What's too easy? Greg responded. AOTA, all of the above. All of the above what? Greg asked. 411. Oh, 411. If I know anything, a 411 is never good. At least in mechanicry. Like, if you ever get a warning, it's maybe a 401 or a 411. Or I could be just stretching it. All of the above information was too easy. What did Fetch mean? Was he talking about Greg's conversation with Kimberly? Was he saying that Greg was making the 0-point field too easy? And why did Greg care about the opinion of an animatronic dog anyways? He wanted to ignore Fetch, but Fetch texted REGM2. When Fetch then texted a link to a website that sold small REGs. Greg didn't understand that Fetch meant by REGM2. Did M2 mean me too? What did that mean? Fetch was he wanted an REG2? Or was he saying he was an REG, or like an REG? Greg frowned and texted back, thanks. He figured that Fetch ever was saying he could stay on Fetch's good side. Haiti and Serial came over and brought pizza. Surprisingly, Greg's parents were home, but they were caught up in intense discussion, and they both said, okay, when Greg asked if his friend could come over with pizza. The boys spent their first 15 minutes wolfing down pepperoni pizza and guzzling Coke. Wow, talk about a party. I mean, personally, I'm a cactus core guy. What, I was going to make a drug joke? Oh, grow up. When Haiti burped loudly, Greg decided it was time. We need to talk about what happened the other night. Do we really? Serial asked. Yeah, Greg said. Fetch is out there somewhere. Well, now you're just being a moron, he said. That's what bothers you? And he's out there somewhere. Yeah, he's out there for sure. Fetch is an animatronic. You obviously managed to turn him on. But how about the fact that the Fetch dug up a spider for you? Or the fact he killed a dog for you? Yeah, there's that, Greg agreed. I think we should destroy it. Haiti said. I think we should stay away from it, Serial said. Yeah, but will Fetch stay away from us? Greg asked. Haiti glared at him. You're the one who activated it. Greg threw up his hands. I didn't even know what it was doing. Well, you need to figure it out, Haiti said. You're the smart one. Yeah, Serial agreed. You sound like you're mad at me, Greg accused his friends. Serial looked at his tiny feet and Haiti said, well, you are mad at me. What did I do? You're the one who wanted to go there in the first place. Oh. You are mad at me. What did I do? Wait, you are mad at me. What did I do? You're the one who wanted to go there in the first place, Serial said. Greg opened and then closed his mouth. He got up. Fine. You two can head home then. I'll take care of it. Haiti and Serial stared at them, looked at each other. Whatever, dude, Haiti said. Come on. He got up and gestured Serial to follow. An hour later, wearing a threadbare sweats and old dyed t-shirt, lying on the back of a bed in the dark, Greg said to the ceiling, I need money. If he had money, more money, than he can get from babysitting anyway, he could get whatever he needed for his experiments. He could set up his own consciousness project, and he'd know about what to do about Fetch. Greg grabbed his phone. Over the summer, he'd read an article about the 13-year-old entrepreneur who set up a home business was making tons of profit. Greg was 14 and he was smart. Why couldn't he had a business? He thumbed in a search, how to make money fast. He spent the next hour skimming through make money at home sites. By the end of the hour, he was frustrated, confused, and tired. So he got ready for bed. Just before he laid down, he picked up his phone and sent to Dare a text. I need the magic finger of luck. Can you teach me how to make money? Dare didn't respond. Greg figured he was probably asleep. Dare usually went to bed earlier than Greg did. Before he turned off the light, his phone buzzed. A text from Fetch. GNSD. Sweet dreams to you, too, Greg responded, ignoring the chill that skirted down his spine. He frowned, bothered by something, but he wasn't sure what it was. He was so tired that he wasn't thinking straight. He couldn't sleep, his eyes open, so he had to close them, and he was asleep immediately. When Greg woke up, it was so dark up. He erupted from the bed, blinked frantically to focus. His last text. What had he been thinking? Idiot! Greg grabbed his phone and deleted his text to Dare. Then he called Dare. No answer. He pulled up Dare's landline number and called it. Even if Dare was asleep, that phone would wake him. No answer. What should he do? Greg had no way to get up Dare's place on his own. It was too far to bike. No buses ran up there. How could he get to Dare and warn him? A ride? He needed a ride. From who? No way could he ask his parents. He thought about Mrs. Peters 3 doors down. She was always nice to him. Maybe. Greg tore off his PJs and pulled a gray sweats navy blue hoodie. He grabbed his phone and ran out of his room. He wasn't sure how he was going to explain to Mrs. Peters, but he needed a ride at... What time is it? He checked 4:30. Well, he just have to figure it out. On his stocking feet, Greg took the stairs 2 at a time. Inside of the front door, he stopped to tug rain boots in the entryway. Then he threw back at a deadbolt, flung the door open. He started to charge through the door, but then he looked down. His legs went out from under him, and he crumpled to the ground. He started to heave, covered his mouth, and looked away, but lay on top of the welcome friends mat. Looking away didn't help, though. The image was indelibly etched to the retinas. In his mind, he could see Dare's thick finger, the face torn and bloody, part of his bone jutting through the core. The finger was dusky and had tufts and light hair. The blood was bright red. Even just in memory, the details were excruciating. Greg didn't even notice that the blood was congealed before the finger, and that had dropped the mat because of the white M wasn't bloody. Greg? What are you doing down there? Greg, what are you doing down there? Greg's mom was coming down the stairs. Greg didn't think. He snatched up the finger and stuffed it into his pocket of his hoodie. Grabbing the door frame, he pulled himself to his feet and shut the door. I was sleepwalking, Greg said. Lame. But he was too out of it to come up with something better. Then he noticed his mom was crying. What's wrong? He asked. Her eyes and nose were red. Her mascara was smeared. Her cheeks were wet. She wore nothing but her pink, fuzzy robe over a white, frilly nightshirt. She wiped her cheeks and sang down into the 3rd step at the bottom of the stairs. What's wrong? He repeated. He rushed to the stairs, sat next to his mom. She took his hand. I'm sorry. It's not the end of the world. I'm just shocked, is all. It's your Uncle Darren. Greg stiffened. You won't believe this, Mom said, sobbing. He got attacked by some kind of wild animal. Tore off his finger. Greg couldn't breathe. He looked down in the hoodie pocket, and his hand over it for the ring still wrapped around the grotesquely ripped base. Then Greg had seen the finger. He would have known it's theirs, even without the presence of an onyx and gold ring. But the ring, that more than exposed the bone and veins, was what had dismayed him the most. Now his eyes filled with tears. He cleared his clogged throat and managed. It's terrible. That's terrible. He's all scratched up too. Mauled. He's having airlifted To the hospital. I just can't believe this. Greg couldn't comfort her. He was too busy realizing, oh no, oh no, 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 he groaned. His mother, not understanding, wrapped in her arms around him. It's okay. Really, I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll probably make a joke about losing his finger. He burst into tears again. No, 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 Greg repeated like a mantra. Like he could say enough, make everything stop and go back the way it was. Disengaging himself from his mom, he touched the hoodie pocket and said, I need air. He ran to the front door and threw it open and careened down the front stairs. Then it was raining, but if it had been, he wouldn't have cared. He had to get away. He couldn't face it. He couldn't accept what he'd done. Because he'd done it. Obviously, he had to done it. He'd done it bad. And he left the house, but before he could go anywhere, he was stopped in his track. Was that? Yes, it was. Under the short pines clustered near the back of his yard, next to maroon grass edge of the dunes. Fetch. Stat. His eyes glowed red in the loud pudrin light, and his ears were tilted forward as if in question. Greg was so angry and upset he didn't even think about running away. Instead, he grabbed the baseball bat and his dad's pile of sporting equipment, took one step toward Fetch, then another, and then he sprinted full out. Fetch stood, eyes bright. He looked at Greg. If Fetch was a real dog, Greg would have thought this was cute. But Fetch wasn't a real dog. He was an animatronic killer, made to look like a dog. Greg wasn't going to let the seemingly happy look stop him. Then Greg reached Fetch. Didn't hesitate. He swung the bat at Fetch's head. The first strike split open the top of Fetch's head, revealing a metal skull and ripped wire. Sparks flew as Greg wound up another swing. Okay, whoa. I know. What the freak are you doing? This is the juicy part. It's 10 pages in. I'm sorry, I really am. I'm gonna make this quick, I swear. So, we are now finally inducing that Fetch is a killer dog. We're finally deducing this. I mean, it was kind of just known. But think about that. Imagine having a dog at your grasp. I probably should have finished that page. So wait, what are the next 10, I think, yeah, the next 15 pages going to be about? Huh. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, I'm going to read this as seriously as I can. What did you do? Greg screamed at Fetch. Fetch's mouth hinged open in what looked like a silly grin. Greg swung the back and whacked Fetch's mouth. Metal teeth sprayed out. More sparks sputtered at the end of wires, hung through the mouth opening. But Fetch, still looking at Greg, with what looked like an eager gaze. Stop it! Greg shrieked, swinging the bat in a wide arc. He brought down on Fetch's head as hard as he could. Metal clanged, more sparks flitted out in the wet dune grass. Greg kept up his assault. He pounded on Fetch with a bat. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Finally, Fetch's face was pulverized. But Greg wasn't done. He raised the bat again and battered what was left of the machine. Soon, the remnants of the animatronic killer didn't resemble anything but a small pile of industrial debris. Still, Greg didn't stop. Not until he had blisters on his palms, and he was chomping at sea air in frantic, wide-open gulps. Finally, he dropped the bat. Greg still fell back on his butt with the sloppy, wet dunes. He stared at a pile of metal, hinges, serrated fur with wires as he sat, catching his breath. The surf was loud, its rhythmic roar like a chant of a million angry men. To Greg, it was a sound of judgment. It was his accuser. How dare he think he knew enough about the field to think about luck and expect to get money? And what was he thinking when he texted Dare about the magic finger of luck? He was the one who'd been wrong. How could he blame this on Fetch? Fetch might have been like an REG machine, in that he seemed to react to Greg's thoughts. But he wasn't an REG machine, was he? Greg didn't understand what was going on, but he thought that Fetch was responding to more than just text. Somehow, Fetch was observing Greg's actions, and maybe he was even reading his thoughts the way Greg's plants did. Fetch wasn't the 0-point field, but he was part of it. He seemed to be acting like the field dog or something. getting whatever the few thought Greg wanted. Whatever Fetch was, it was Greg's fault that Dare got his finger told off. Greg, are you out there? Greg's mom called. Greg looked in the destroyed animatronic. Greg? His mother started down the steps. Greg and the debris were partially hidden in the moram grass, but if his mom came to the backyard, he'd see them. Greg looked around and spotted depression after drift log covered with Fetch's teeth. He quickly shoveled all Fetch parts into the hole and called out, "Coming!" His mom wanted Greg to know Dare would be in surgery for a while to repair damaged nerves and sew up his lacerations. It would be some time before they could go visit him, so he was going back to work until then. She hugged Greg before she left. His dad was already gone. As Greg went inside, he realized he'd left the house without his phone. What if someone had been trying to reach him? Someone. Let's get real. He meant Fetch. Had Fetch sent him the text before Greg had spotted him? Yes, Fetch had texted Greg, discovered when he reached his room. Oh. Fetch has asked Greg how he was doing to use the magic finger of luck. The questioning put Greg into a fatal position on the bed. It brought the fresh wave of tears. Grimberry's words played on repeat in his head. He's going to crash and burn before he figures it out. Crash and burn. Crash and burn. Crash and burn. Greg sat and up and yelled, "No! No!" He grabbed one of the books in the nightstand and he figured it would be the biggest plant in his collection. The plant went flying off the shelf and dirt exploded into the air. Greg snatched up another book and threw it. Another book. Threw it. He had this over and over until every one of his plants was on the floor and dirt was everywhere. He breathed in a musky scent of damp earth. He laid back down and tried to calm his breathing. This brought the tears back, but that was okay. He lay there and cried until he fell asleep. Then he woke up. The sun was dropping in the west. It was mid-afternoon. As full consciousness returned, he remembered everything. What a complete tool, he berated himself. What had he been thinking? Did he really believe that he could figure out what no one else, not the CIA or the universe's experts, had figured out? If nothing could be done, wouldn't it have been done? Such an egotistical little twerp he'd been. He realized now how little he knew what meant whatever he thought he knew. Whatever he thought had been the right thing to do could have been exactly the opposite of that. He was really guided to the restaurant. Or did he come up with the lame idea himself? And if he was guided, what guided him? He assumed he was doing something to get him what he wanted. But then his phone rang. He froze. Then he realized he was being stupid. Fetch didn't call, or he texted. Greg looked at his phone. It was from Haiti. "Hey, dude. You okay? You weren't at school." Greg stared at the destroyed plants. He'd forgotten all about school. He'd forgotten all about life. "Yeah, something happened to Dare." "What? Is he okay?" "Dude, I'm sorry. Dude, I'm sorry." Greg could hear Haiti talking to someone else. "Serial says he's sorry too," Haiti said. "Thanks. Can we do anything?" "Not unless you can do magic. Sorry to disappoint, dude." "Yeah. Hey, I'm not sure if it'll make you feel better, but Kimberly was looking for you just now." Greg sat up and combed his hair, catching himself rolling his eyes. It wasn't like she was in the room. "Really?" "Totally. She said you have a good paper idea and she's ready to work on it." "Right, the paper." He slumped. He had been too excited about that, and now he didn't want to even think about the topic. Still, if it meant spending time with Kimberly, You noticed Haiti was talking. "What? Sorry?" "I said, after listening to you moan after a girl forever, I guess it would be nice to see you with her." "It hasn't been forever, just since second grade." "Had it really been that long since he loved Kimberly?" "Whatever." "Yeah, it would be nice to see her." "Well, then don't miss your chance. Call her and get busy on that paper. Win her over, dude." Greg grinned. Then he frowned. It felt wrong to feel hopeful after what happened to Dare. I gotta go, he said. Sure, let us know if you want to hang out. Okay. Greg put down the phone and went to take another hot shower. He stank of sweat and salty sea air. What? When he got out of the shower and got dressed, he picked the phone to call Kimberly. That's when he saw a text from Fetch, sent 5 minutes ago. It said, will receive. No! Greg groaned. Greg shoved his phone in his pocket and tore out his room. He got up down the stairs and out the dunes. Would Fetch even be there? And when he reached the edge of the yard, he slowed. He was almost afraid to look, but he had to. Edged into the dunes, he looked under the drift log wood. Greg's legs gave out. He sank to his knees in the wet dune grass. Although a few small screws and metal pieces, wires, and hinge and stood under the log, the vast majority of the scraps were gone. Gone? Greg looked around. Only footprints he saw in the sand were his own. Sand did tell a story around the driftwood. A wet was graved with a drag marks. At least a dozen smears reached out from under the log, and they angled toward each other until they formed one messy drag mark and ended that flattening clump of dune grass. Greg struggled to his feet and backed away from the dunes. Turning, he galloped into the house and up to his room. There he sank to the floor and put his head in his hands. Snapshots of the last several weeks flashed through his head. The spider, the dead dog, the torn up dead dog, Dare's severed finger. All Greg wanted was some luck. He didn't want his uncle's finger, but Fetch obviously took things literally. Greg had no doubt Fetch was active again. How? Greg didn't know. He didn't need to know. He just did know, and Fetch still worked. So Fetch interpreted his request for luck as needed to rip off Dare's finger. How exactly would he retrieve? And more importantly, what or who was Fetch going up to retrieve? Especially now that Greg had beaten him up. No! Greg jumped back to it, to stuff his phone in his pocket. Shoving his feet to the black running shoes, he flew out of his house. Kimberly lived about a mile away, further south on the same street he lived on. It would be a straight shot. Grabbing his bike, Greg pedaled hard. Of course, the wind was picking up again. It was coming from the south. His lungs were screaming by the time he got halfway to her house. He ignored them and pushed on. He had to reach Kimberly before Fetch did. If it wasn't too late already, then when he had reached Kimberly's house, he leaped off his bike and prepared to rush up the door. But he was caught himself and realized the house was dark. No cars were in the driveway. No one was home. Kimberly had mentioned her mom usually picked her up after school, and they often stopped to run errands on the way home. Kimberly was still at school. Then Haiti called. Greg probably beat them there. Greg leaned over to catch his breath and picked up the bike. Carrying it into the bushes at the edge of Kimberly's yard, he hunkered down to wait. He started searching for Fetch, but he didn't know when Kimberly would get home, and he could miss her if he was off looking for Fetch. He couldn't risk it. He waited. While he waited, he tried to calm himself with yoga, breathing. Didn't work. He was so tense by the time the sun got going down at 4:30, he felt like his limbs would break if he tried to unbend from the crouched position. He figured he'd better try to move now before Kimberly got home. Just as he started to stretch his legs and stand, he spotted headlights coming down the street. He bent low again. The car went past, but before he could straighten another, he came over. This was the one. A dark blue SUV pulled into the driveway. The passenger door opened, and Kimberly, wearing jeans and a cute green top, had matched her eyes. Bounced out of the car. She was chattering to her mother, and she did. I think if we put oregano in, it would be good. Maybe with basil too? Her mother said. Tall and slender, with a pretty face and short graying black hair, Mrs. Bergstrom was mid-60s. When they were in second grade, Kimberly told them her mother was 51 years old when Kimberly was born. I was a miracle baby, Kimberly said. I figure that means I should be nice to my parents. She laughed her musical laugh. Greg knew Kimberly's dad was even older than Kimberly's mom. He was retired. He owned a couple of hotels in the Ocean Shores. He sold them the year before. He mostly plays golf now, Greg overheard Kimberly tell a friend. Greg had met both the Bergenstons, although Mr. Bergenston was a little grumpy. Mrs. Bergenston was nice, but would she listen? Greg prepared to step out of the bushes and tell Kimberly she was in danger, but he realized how insane the story was going to sound. Maybe if he could just talk just to her, she could convince her parents to listen. Before he decided to do a black sedan pulled behind the SUV. He crunched over gravel strewn across the asphalt driveway. Mr. Bergenston got out. The wind picked up the speed when Mr. Bergenston's feet hit the ground. It flew off the red baseball cap, and Kimberly skipped out after it. "Thanks, sweetie," Mr. Bergenston said. "Thanks, sweetie," Mr. Bergenston said. He smoothed down a thinning white hair and hugged his daughter. The ocean wasn't as loud as it was in the morning when Greg was running the dunes. Was it seriously just that morning that he had found out about Dare and he tried to destroy Fetch? Felt like a year ago, at least. Even though it wasn't as loud, the ocean's instant murmur drowned out Kimberly and her parents were saying. They walked toward the house. Greg started to rise again, but not sure what to do. As he rose, Mr. Bergenson's hat flew off once more, and he strode after it. The hat landed right in front of the bush Greg hid in. Mr. Bergenston spotted him. "Hey, kid! What are you doing in the bushes?" Mr. Bergenston's voice said, strident and sharp. Greg squared his shoulders and stood up. He had to try to warn them. "Hi, Mr. Bergenston," he said. "Who are you? No, wait, I've seen you! Greg, what are you doing?" "Greg, what are you doing here?" Kimberly called out from her front walk. She came toward Greg and her dad. Mrs. Bergenston followed. Kimberly, I know this is gonna sound crazy." "What's gonna sound crazy? What's the meaning of this?" What's the meaning of this?" Mr. Bergenston snapped. Greg took a deep breath and dove into explanation. "Kimberly, you're in danger. Like, serious danger. I think someone or something is going to try to kill you." "What?" Mr. and Mrs. Bergenston erupted in unison. Mr. Bergenston's tone was rough and outraged. Mrs. Bergenston's tone was high-pitched and shriek of fear. Kimberly said nothing, but her eyes had widened. "Kimberly, you know what we're talking about. The RGs, the plants, the cells, the shared consciousness, the guidance?" She nodded. "I have no idea how to explain this, but part of the guidance I got what I had now, and it was inside that abandoned pizzeria. So I got Cyril and Haiti to break in there with me." "You what?" Mr. Brigington sputtered. Greg ignored him. "And we found an animatronic dog that was assigned to sync up with your cell phone." Mr. Bergerson tried to interrupt again, but Greg talked louder and faster. "I was curious, so I poked around and I got it to work. Or at least I thought it couldn't work. At least I thought it couldn't work. Get it to work. But apparently it did, because it's been texting me and doing things for me. At least it did helpful things, but then it started doing things I didn't want it to do. Killed a dog that bothered me." Kimberly, a dog lover, Greg knew, sucked in her breath. He shrugged at her. "Yeah, I know, it's awful. I mean, this was a horrible dog, but still, it was a dog. And the way it was killed was... Anyways, when I was wanting some luck, my uncle had his magic finger of luck, and I wished I had that too. And then I found this. Young man, Mr. Bergenston shouted. Greg ignored him and talked even louder. I found this finger. And so this afternoon I said I wanted to be with you. And now I'm afraid Fetch is going to..." "Young man!" Mr. Bergenston yelled. Greg stopped because, well, what else could he say? That's when he noticed Mr. Bergenston put a cell phone to his ear. "Yes, could you please send an officer to my home? Some crazy teenager is stalking my daughter. I want him arrested." Greg looked at Kimberly. She mouthed, "Sorry." He shook his head. He failed again. When the police officer questioned Greg about breaking into the restaurant, Greg kept telling himself Kimberly would be okay. She was fine now, and if Fetch was following what was going on through Greg's cell phone, he'd surely know Greg wanted Kimberly to be left alone. "I'd forgotten all about that old pizzeria," the middle-aged cop said. The Bergenston reported Greg's break-in. "Is it still there?" Is it still there? Greg thought. Was the place like Bradington or something? When the police officer put Greg in an SUV and took him to the police station, Greg kept telling himself Kimberly would be okay. Her parents would be on guard. Fetch wouldn't be able to retrieve her. But no matter how often he told himself everything would be fine, he dreaded going back to his house. It took 2 hours for the police to process him and question him. It took another 2 hours for the police to locate his parents, and another hour and a half to get them to the station because they were both in Olympia. What if Fetch had gotten to Kimberly in that time? His parents finally showed up to the station, his mother red-eyed and his dad pissed off about, well, everything. The police had decided to release Greg into his parents' care. He'd be free. Also meant he could keep an eye on Kimberly as soon as his parents went to bed. He'd sneak out and go watch over her. He'd do that for as long as it took him to find Fetch and figure out a way to deactivate him. Greg almost couldn't bear to get out of his dad's pickup when his dad pulled into the garage. Dragging his feet, Greg reluctantly opened the car door and stepped onto the concrete. He cautiously approached the stairway leading up to the front door. Then he steeled himself and looked around. Everything seemed normal. Kimberly's body wasn't under the house or front of mat. He nearly fainted in relief. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Greg's dad asked, when Greg sagged against the stair railing. "Nothing." When Greg and his parents entered the house, Greg's dad grabbed Greg's arm, Greg gritting his teeth. "I say I was disappointed in you," his dad said, "but I haven't expected anything good from you in years." Greg's mom sighed. "Stephen, Hillary!" Greg ignored them both and went up the stairs to his room, peeling off his clothes as soon as he was in the darkened space. He went to take another shower. He stank again. But not only did the hard bark ride and the panic to save Kimberly make him sweat buckets, he had sat in what smelled like dried urine in the cop's SUV. He thought the hot shower might bring him back to life. He had to get the energy to go Kimberly's house again. This bike was still in the back of Dad's pickup. The policeman had stuck it in his SUV, and then he took Greg in, and he'd been given it back when he and his parents left the station. But when Greg got out of the shower, he was wiped out. Looked at the time on his phone, also checked the text. Nothing. That was good, right? Maybe he could take a nap before heading to Kimberly's to be sure that she was okay. Heck, maybe he'd be wrong about the whole thing. Maybe Fetch wasn't retrieving him a snack or information he needed to even realize he'd requested. Maybe there was nothing to worry about. Greg pulled on a yellow t-shirt and pair of gray flannel sleep pants. Then he threw open the bathroom door. Barely containing a scream, Greg stumbled away from the door and fell to the tiled floor, his mind struggling to accept what he was looking at. There was something wrapped in a sheet laying across the doorway. He stared. The one-piece sheet was turning a deep, dark red, and it glistened wet in the room's muted light. Who was under the sheet? What was under the sheet? Greg couldn't get himself to move so he could find out. Greg didn't need to look any further. He knew everything he needed to know. The phone on Greg's bathroom counter vibrated. He couldn't help himself. He picked it up and looked at it. Fetch had texted, "See you." Wow. What a freaking ending. Huh? We had a fight scene. My back. I need to read this 2 more times today. But man, my throat hurts after that. We had a fight scene. We had one heck of a freaking day, to be honest. But yeah, we had a fight scene. We had just everything was freaky. So I have a new theory, and it's gonna technically add up all the other theories of this book so far. So the first book, we had the other guy, the cat animatronic, and Fetch. I believe the cat animatronic I'm gonna stop moving away from my mic. I believe the cat animatronic is just a cat animatronic. The other person that walked in that made them leave early was not another person. It was the dog that future they found. And Fetch is Fetch. So my second theory, the second video I made was just kind of weird, to be honest. It was just me reading and reading and reading. I don't remember if anything happens. I think it's when it's just when we learn about, I don't know, to be honest. I don't remember. Last video was about, oh, and if you want me to read more, I'm sorry, that's next video. Skip 2 days, or if you're reading this today, grazie. Let's see. I believe Greg, considering he got the spider and all that, the spider and the, was pretty weird, especially for Fetch. And it's also very weird that Scott Cawthon and everyone else working on this, Andrea Wagner and Carly Ann West, are just putting more into the, but I'm guessing that's just a suspense type of thing. Let's see, in this page, oh my goodness, 25 pages, and we're actually on record time. Well, if I was to end the video 2 minutes ago, we'd be on record time for the book. I think the shortest I've ever read would be a 20-minute video. Actually, how many pages am I reading next video? That's a very good question. 86 to 100, so that's 14 pages. I don't know, maybe next video will be a record video. Let's hope, shall we? My back hurts, because I was leaning in, actually getting into the book. So, we had that happen. Freaky stuff, huh? But, aside from that, oh, we had a fight scene. Let's see. Kimberly is now crumpled. Well, actually mangled in a way. And also, I don't know if you guys remember this, but ever heard about the theory, yes, it's by Game Theory, about the little girl and the dog in Pizza Simulator? If you get to the level 3 of that Pac-Man ripoff of the little girl, you'll see the little girl and Springtrap. Basically, Springtrap telling the little girl that she knows where the dog is. Kimberly sounds fairly familiar. Perfect nose, hair, happy, likes dogs. I'm just saying. But aside from that, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. This has been a very good read, and it's the last episode of Fetch. Not the book, but just the thing. Next is Lonely Freddy's, which has 5 videos, which is going to be annoying to record. But, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. See you in the flip side, and don't die to coronavirus.